Salutations, everybody. It is Matty here today, and we are talking about Xbox and Bethesda again. Yeah, okay, I get it. We've talked about it a lot on the channel. I'm self-aware, okay? I understand. I've seen a couple of comments where some folks are like, Matty, enough. I want to know what reality some people are living in where this is already old news. How are we that desperate to move on after a $7.5 billion acquisition that's going to change the face of Xbox entirely, as well as Bethesda, a company that we have been invested in for a while? I don't know. Let's take our time. Breathedly. One more time. Okay. Now that we have refreshed ourselves, we are grounded in reality. Let's talk about this extremely big deal, because there's one angle that we have not focused on yet, and this will likely, I say likely, and watch, I probably jinxed it, there will be more news, wrap up some of our Bethesda and Xbox coverage. And it's to talk of games coming to PlayStation, PlayStation support with Bethesda, as well as what legacy content is. A lot of this stemmed through the Xbox Bethesda roundtable discussion where Phil Spencer was pulling off the band-aid about Xbox exclusives, but he left a couple of things on the table that weren't quite the shotgun blast to the gut of PlayStation that maybe they were quite looking for, or at least people expected. And so what I want to do here is break down one part of his quote, because sadly, I think Phil is starting to get a reputation for this. He speaks a bit at times ambiguously, and because of that, people have to dissect his wording and come to their own interpretation, or in this case, wait to find out. But I think it's clear. You just have to know a couple of things. So let's look at the video clip of Phil Spencer describing what exactly is going to happen with Xbox exclusives, and from there, we will pick apart two parts of his sentence.
That's what I just think it's fair. So obviously, I can't sit here and say every Bethesda game is exclusive, because we know that's not true. There's contractual obligations that we're going to see through, as we always do in every one of these instances. We have games that exist on other platforms, and we're going to go support those games on the platforms they're on. There's communities of players. We love those communities, and we'll continue to invest in them. And even in the future, there might be things that have either contractual things or legacy on different platforms that we'll go do. But if we're an Xbox customer, the thing I want you to know is this is about delivering great exclusive games for you that ship on platforms where Game Pass exists. And that's our goal. That's why we're doing this. That's the root of this partnership that we're building, and the creative capability we will be able to bring to market for our Xbox customers. It's going to be the best it's ever been for Xbox after we're done here.
All right, so part one is that there are contractual obligations that we are going to see through. So there's 3 games on that list that fulfill the contractual obligations, and potentially more, because it's always possible that Bethesda and PlayStation made a deal before Xbox had come in and bought Bethesda. I mean, Bethesda was collecting the bag beforehand. They were like, we're going to take this exclusive deal and this exclusive deal, and then Xbox is going to buy us for $7.5 billion. I mean, yeah, fair play to them. They got a lot of money out of both of them at the end of the day. But anyway, the 3 games are Ghostwire Tokyo, Deathloop. These are both PlayStation 5 console exclusive. We don't know if Xbox is going to find a workaround for, say, Xbox Game Pass on PC right now. And then, of course, the third one is the quietly announced before the Xbox and Bethesda acquisition announcement, which was Doom 3 VR on PSVR. This one was, like I said, a very, very quiet announcement. But anyway, these are the types of contractual obligations that Xbox will honor. They're not going to buy out the contracts. They're not going to say, hey, we'll do royalties and put this on multi-plat. They just said, you guys can have this. We're interested in the future of Bethesda. And so with all of these games there, that is what they're referring to. I think that was pretty self-explanatory, but I think it's important because the second half of this sentence requires a little bit more digging deep. So with that out of the way, let's look at the second part, where Phil says that we love the communities and will continue to invest in them. And even in the future, there might be either contractual things or legacy on different platforms that we'll go do. Now, I actually dug down the rabbit hole on this a number of days ago. I shared that with Carrick on the Ham Radio podcast. Shout out to all of you who are listening, by the way. We averaged about 5,000 listeners weekly, and now we're up to like almost 15 to 20,000 in that range every single week. So thank you to all of you who support our show and are loving what we're doing, because we love doing it for you. But the reason I'm focusing on this conversation is because not all of you had 3 hours every weekend or every week to listen throughout and hear our full thoughts. So I thought in this video, this was the one part of Phil's sentence that was like wide open for Is it this? Is it that? Okay, is Elder Scrolls 6 coming to PlayStation 5 now because Elder Scrolls had a legacy technically on PlayStation? Is that how it's working? The answer, short, no. What is happening here is legacy is in reference to older content. And that's what Carrick and I broke down in the show. But here for this video, what's pretty much happening is stuff like an Elder Scrolls Online, a Fallout 76, these live service games, they are legacy. They're on PS4. They will continue to receive support. Even if Xbox has to chip in, they will continue to receive that support. Nothing's going to change on that end. In fact, when the acquisition was first announced by ZeniMax and Bethesda, they made sure to immediately clarify through Elder Scrolls Online's Twitter account, hey, nothing is changing on our end. They wanted to make sure players knew that suddenly their accounts were not going to disappear, which was smart because it took about half a year for the rest of the deal to go through. So Elder Scrolls Online 76, those are going to remain the same. And then Legacy also refers to, let's take a look at more recent things. Doom Eternal, the second part of the Eternal Gods DLC, just got announced for Doom Eternal. That is still coming to PlayStation. It released on PS4. It's not like suddenly that legacy content is no longer being supported. Things like patches, DLC, the older titles, that type of stuff. And what's interesting is, and I don't say this to like make fun of PlayStation fans, but honestly, there's a degree of mental gymnastics. I've seen so many people go, well, Elder Scrolls has a legacy on PlayStation, so clearly Elder Scrolls 6 is coming to PS5. No. What is that? Is anyone paying attention? I'm sorry, I'm not even trying to sound like a know-it-all, but Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind, the game that saved Bethesda, by the way, was exclusive to Xbox. Oblivion, Elder Scrolls 4, one of the most definitive open-world games of its time, Xbox exclusive. Skyrim DLC, first on Xbox. Fallout 3 DLC, first on Xbox. Fallout 3 runs like trash on PS3. Take it from someone who's got the Platinum Trophy on that, okay? I love my Platinum Trophies. It's awful on Fallout 3. It's so bad I have a whole video on it, which is me just kicking a box around my room and ranting and raving about it because I was like 17 at the time, so like cut me a little slack. Skyrim on PS3, broken. Fallout 4 on PS4, I mean, let's be honest, Fallout 4, when it came to the Commonwealth, didn't run well anywhere. Point being is that I don't know where people got the indication that Elder Scrolls Legacy was on PlayStation, because it's not. And once again, mental gymnastics, because I think the idea is people are so obsessed with their team winning, their team beating the other team, that they're just going to lie to themselves. And that's not like oh, I love it because it's on Xbox only. It's just reality has been Elder Scrolls has always been on the side of Xbox, and it's been better there. And we've seen it even the Fallout side of things, like Fallout 4's console mods absolutely dominate PlayStations. And the interesting thing is, here's where PlayStation fans, you have your win here, because stuff like Dishonored, The Evil Within, those types of things did not have their legacy on PlayStation. They were multi-plat, so likely a Wolfenstein 3, I do think, is going to be exclusive to Xbox because it's not really owed to PlayStation. It's not like it was starting there. Deathloop, Ghostwire Tokyo, those are PlayStation exclusive from the start. So if those games do well enough and do get a sequel, I would not be surprised at all if come down the line, those sequels are multi-plat. I think that is what Phil Spencer is referring to when he says legacy stuff we will honor, because he brought up contractual obligations twice, and I don't mean to pick it apart so meticulously, but all of these PR-loaded statements are intentional. They're 100% intentional. So for him to mention contractual obligations and then contractual obligations and legacy, that is absolutely 100% in reference to something like Deathloop or Ghostwire Tokyo, where, hey, these are PlayStation first games, and we will honor that by at least letting them come to PlayStation. They'll come to Xbox next, but we're going to let them come to PlayStation as well in their next entry, if there is a next entry. That's the only thing I will say. And I'm not saying that to take it away from PlayStation fans or be like, you're not getting it, because I don't want that. I'm just saying we don't know how they'll do. Bethesda has had a really bad run lately with games like Rage 2, Dishonored 2, Prey, The Evil Within 2. All of them sold horribly. Not horribly, that's a little dramatic, but all of them sold not as well as they really should have. Some of those games were really good. Dishonored 2 and Prey in particular, I thought were fantastic. So for those wondering, I think that is the read on the situation when it comes to PlayStation games coming to Bethesda. Now let's talk a little bit about, in that topic, expansion. A lot of people were, I'd say, a bit worried about the expansion of platforms and seeing Epic munch some people up, seeing Xbox munch some people up, and maybe PlayStation's going to. I think PlayStation's eyes are more than likely on Square Enix. That's just my personal prediction. I said in my last video, I think Square Enix is in a bit of a hole right now, and I think a buyout is very well possible. Plus, much like with Bethesda and Xbox, I do think Square Enix and PlayStation do their best work together. So I would be excited to see some kind of deal like that. But of course, there is that worry of consolidation in our industry. I think what's happening is you're starting to see reactions to the pandemic. You're also starting to see people realize, I think like Bethesda especially, Bethesda was way better before they started to reach for money. Wolfenstein Youngblood and Fallout 76 were major red flags. I really think Wolfenstein Youngblood was a bigger red flag. And I have to believe that Bethesda as creatives didn't want to reach as hard as they did for your money, but they did anyway, because I think they were in bigger trouble than was indicated, because stuff like Prey, The Evil Within 2, Dishonored 2, games that I just mentioned, all did really bad. So they needed to make up that ground somewhere. That, or they wanted to inflate their value, so when they sold to Microsoft, they got their $7.5 billion. Why do you think they were teaming up with PlayStation? It's why I called them out for it when they were doing these third-party exclusives. I was like, wait, what? That's a little strange, because it seemed like a complete out-of-nowhere thing. Point being, though, is there is this understandable fear in the industry that independence will no longer exist because these companies are going to go into bidding wars with each other and buy everyone out. You have the Embracer Group, which has munched up Gearbox. They took Aspire, who's likely making the next Knights of the Old Republic game. Yeah, there's definitely concern there. And I think it's 100% warranted because, you know, you want independent studios like, I'd say, Insomniac Games. Insomniac Games was independent for a while, and it's why we got the likes of a Sunset Overdrive, because they decided, hey, let's team up with Xbox for this. We're going to team up with PlayStation for Ratchet and Clank. And you were just getting banger after banger from Insomniac. And now they're doing Spider-Man. So I do think there is a degree of benefit from those types of independent studios, and there's plenty more to name. And I think indie games will now rise. And what's happening is voids will be created right by these buyouts, but people need to be open to the other studios that can then fill their spots. I want to put one company on your map here. For those of you who may be upset or are looking for another company to keep your eye on, look at Focus Home Interactive. I know they have their flaws, but Focus Home is a AA behemoth. They are publishing some amazing, they are banger after banger. But like, speaking of banger after banger, Focus Home, Vampire, A Plague Tale Innocence. They're doing that Hood game. They have done a lot of great stuff, and they look to continue to do incredible stuff. I mean, they are continuously impressing me. It's one of those rare feelings I get where when I see a company's logo on something, I feel a little bit more confident. I'm not like that. I don't have brand loyalty. I just don't behave in that manner, but I would be lying if I said I didn't feel that way about Focus Home. They make really good stuff for the budget that these games have. Look at them to fill some slots. Look at them. They also helped publish Greedfall, a game that I still talk about and rave about. Yeah, it's janky, but that game is awesome. So there are plenty of game companies out there that can step up and fill that hole or become independent, leave, like we saw Bungie leave Activision, become independent, do their own thing. Of course, the concern comes in about Tencent investments, Chinese money in the industry. There is absolutely that worry because then you have creative control, which we've seen exercised in a couple of games, and that's 100% worth the discussion as well. The reality is some companies are going to chase money. I'm not going to individualize Bethesda and go, well, they just cared about the creative vision. I think a lot of these companies see a lot of dollar bills and they go, this is guaranteed money versus investing our money and then maybe flopping as a company because a great game we made just did not catch the right wind and then scoop up a lot of gamers who then bought our game. So they take the guaranteed money, no matter who it's from. And part of me can't blame them. So that's why you're going to start to see more buyouts. That's why you're going to see, definitely by the end of the year, either PlayStation or Xbox, another acquisition. It's going to happen. I would not be remotely surprised. So just keep your eye on that type of stuff because it will continue to happen, and it's definitely a situation worth monitoring. Right now, it's exciting because it's Bethesda. I think Bethesda does their best work with Xbox, and I do think that you have companies that can fill up those slots. But something like Focus Home, maybe they're interested in a buyout. Who knows, right? And if they did get bought out, I'd be excited for whoever got them because they just got a lot of good IP, a lot of good stuff. And if they had more budget, oh my gosh, the stuff that they could do. So not to get too off topic here, but what I wanted to focus on here was the PlayStation side of things, what's going to happen to them in the future of our industry, and how both sides are going to be impacted. So hopefully this was a interesting enough conversation with all of you and that you've learned something in this video. That was kind of the goal of this. So let me know if I accomplished my mission. We'll see. I don't know. Sometimes a little bit unsure of that. Anyway, I hope you did learn something. And with that, I sign out now. Be sure to let me know what you're thinking in the comments down below. Other than that, follow me on Twitter, follow me on Instagram. Those links are in the description down below. Big thank you to all the patrons, all the members who continue to support the hell out of the content here. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.